Michael Schmidt at the New York Times managed to get Donald Trump in an impromptu interview. This was a 30-minute long interview that happened at the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is the place where Trump has spent most of his time as president of the United States. But this interview was interesting. They touched on a number of different topics, and Trump gave a number of different uncensored, unfiltered answers, so you know it's gonna be fun. So on the topic of the Russia investigation, Trump had said that he thinks Mueller is gonna be fair. I was gonna give him that. I think he's gonna be fair. But he also repeated on 16 different occasions that there was no collusion. Okay, insisted 16 times that there has been no collusion discovered by this investigation. Okay.
Let's just note for real quick that there's no way that he could know that. The investigation is secret. So he has no idea what it has uncovered or not uncovered. And 16 times, a little defensive, I can't quite tell.
Cenk, I hate to correct you on this, but he could know because it says right here that he said, I have absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department. Absolutely. So he could just walk over there and say, hey, let me see your investigation. Like he's out of his mind. He's been out of his mind, but to say something like that, like the whole Constitution, the whole structure of the government, absolute right to do what I want.
Well, and the thing is, I don't even think he even really understands how our government works or how it's supposed to work. I think he was under the assumption that the president has the power to unilaterally do whatever and however he pleases. Now, in regard to the Russia investigation, he continued to say, it makes the country look very bad. And it puts the country in a very bad position. So the sooner it's worked out, the better it is for the country. You make the country look bad, okay? You make the country look bad. And the quotes that I'm gonna read to you later will reinforce that.
Yeah, so on that, to him, to back up both of your points, he thinks, well, if I'm president, I run the place and I run it any way that I want. No, in our system of government, there are 3 branches. You have to explain it to him like he's a child. But actually, children learned that a long time ago. And no, you're not a dictator. You can't do anything you want. And you are not the country. He keeps saying it makes the country look bad. No, it makes you look bad. But you think, well, I'm the president, so I'm now I'm the guy who represents everything. No, the country is fine without you, and it was great without you. It didn't need to be made great again, right? And so. But he's the most egotistical man I have ever seen. And I've seen a lot of egotistical people, including myself. And this guy shatters all records.
He does, and later he will tell us all how he understands legislation better than any president in US history. We'll get to that quote in a minute. But finally, to Alonzo's quote, or your reference to his quote about how he can do whatever he wants, let me give you the full quote in the full context. He said, I have absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department, but for purposes of hopefully thinking I'm going to be treated fairly, I've stayed uninvolved with this particular matter. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. You fired Comey. Like, that's okay. Step number 1 of not remaining uninvolved or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's case after case of you like not letting the situation go and thinking that it's some sort of witch hunt. And then all of a sudden we find out all this information about how certain people in your campaign were not forthcoming. People are pleading guilty to charges in the Mueller investigation. Okay, you mentioned it 16 times in this interview.
So he also has said that Sessions, the Attorney General, should step aside. He did a terrible job of recusing himself. And even in this interview, he later says the job of the Attorney General is to protect the president. That's getting involved in the investigation. But the thing about Trump is, the old joke, parable, whatever, they ask the fish, how's the water feel? And he says, what water, right? Because he's in the water. So with Trump, he's surrounded by stupidity for his whole life, so he doesn't know what stupid is. Like he doesn't realize saying, hey, I want the Attorney General to protect me and not the law, and at the same time saying I'm not interfering with the investigation is stupid. He doesn't get it because he is stupid. He's so dumb. Well, he's surrounded by stupid and doesn't know what to do with. Doesn't even recognize it.
It's true. Yeah.
Getting back to what you said earlier about how he doesn't know how the government works and he loves television. Shouldn't somebody get all of Schoolhouse Rocks? Just get them all on a loop and just say, okay, this weekend, you have to watch all of this to see how. Remember Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
They showed the different branches of government. They showed how a bill became a law, et cetera. Like, just say, okay, you have to watch this so you know what the president does and doesn't do.
Yes.
Alonzo, I think we got a good collabo idea here, because I want to add on top of your idea. They should just put a Fox and Friends logo on it and just run it on his TV, and he'll be like, "Oh man, kill me to Goose, you're doing a great job this morning," and he'll learn a lot more.
Yeah. So then he talks a little bit about his desire for bipartisanship, but how Democrats refuse to play ball. Okay, so he, according to the New York Times, he expressed frustration and anger at Democrats who he said refused to negotiate on legislation. Joe Manchin talks, he said, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. Let's stop for a second. He doesn't do. He doesn't do. Okay.
He has the best words, Anna.
He has the best words. He is a cunning linguist. Okay, so let's put that back up. Joe Manchin talks, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. Hey, let's get together. Let's do bipartisan. I say, good, let's go. Then you don't hear from him again.
Let's do bipartisan.
He thinks that's some chick in Russia.
Let's do.
He thinks that was a girl in Russia. We gonna do bipartisan because we heard she's bi and all that, you know. Yeah, I know. I just made this an adult show. Forgive me for that. This is the thing. The two reasons that's ridiculous. One, because the Republicans went so far out of their way to be bipartisan and work together with Obama.
Oh yeah, they
But
did.
the other thing is, like, yeah, the Democrats didn't make it to the midnight meetings when you were scribbling onto the tax bill, by hand, just scribbling in notes. And it's like they didn't work with us. Like, oh, we didn't work with you when you were doing your secret homework late at night. Like, it was, well, yeah. I don't know.
So that's right. They didn't ask for a single Democratic vote on the tax bill. And so one of the things they added at the last minute, whether it was midnight or not, was a giant real estate loophole, which goes to the advantage of Donald Trump. And so when you were adding a loophole for yourself and your family into the bill at the last minute, it wasn't in the Senate version, it wasn't in the House version. They added it when they were reconciling the bill, and they got a note. Some people think it was from Corker, but most likely it was from Trump and Kushner, who have even bigger real estate holdings than Corker. So you didn't ask the Democrats if it was okay to put a loophole for yourself in. You didn't ask them to do anything. You just did it all by yourself. And so you've never asked for them to legislate anything with you. Right,
and besides which, even if he did, it would be a really bad idea for Democrats to work with him. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
They're not gonna give, progressives what they want, and progressives are already, ready to tear, the moderate Democrats apart for, how complicit they've been for such a long time in policies that have actually gone against, progressive values. So yeah, go ahead and say that you A, want to be bipartisan, and B, that anyone would even want to work with you. You're political suicide for anyone that's on the left, in my opinion. Okay, so moving on, he also wants to tell everyone how smart he is, because that's what Trump does. So here we go.
This is gonna be great.
I know the details of taxes better than anybody. Better than the greatest CPA. Who says that? Who says that? I know the details of healthcare better than most. Better than most.
That's so amazing. It really is amazing.
Who says that?
If Obama had said anything like that, I know taxes better than any CPA. People would be like, what an insane thing to say. If anybody had ever said that but Trump, we've just gotten used to the fact that he's insane.
That's the sad thing, though. This has it's become normal, and that's what they said. The worst thing that can happen is that his inane comments become normal. So now, whenever he says he's the best, he's the greatest, we just kind of laugh it off without realizing how insane this is. Now, the guy who's really mad, the greatest CPA in the country. Oh, he's mad right now. I've been in school. I've been working all my life.
Okay. So he follows that up with this comment. Later, he added that he knows more about, quote, the big bills debated in the Congress, quote, than any president that's ever been in office. Okay. So I don't know if this follow-up question was asked, because this is all in print. We don't know how it all went. But I'm curious if they asked him, okay, so you say that you know a lot about the big bills. A, which big bill are you talking about? And then whatever he decides, whatever he chooses, okay, give me, I mean, the reporters should know the details of these bills, right? Okay, then quiz him on one of the details of the bills and see what he has to say. He doesn't know it. He didn't even know his own policies when he was on the campaign trail. He was never specific about anything. Never specific about anything. Never, never, never. I'm gonna build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. How? How? Explain how you're gonna have Mexico pay for it. Okay, till this day, he comes up with complete and utter bullshit about how Mexico is gonna pay for that freaking wall. Okay, ask him the follow-up questions. Okay, I can't believe that he just gets away by saying, I know everything there is to know about the big bills. Who fucking talks like that?
An idiot. So just a couple of fun notes on those particular quotes. His own accountant, when asked during the campaign, said, yeah, he used to come in, but this is when he was married to Ivana Trump. And the accountant said, he just come in and go, make my taxes lower. And then Ivana would ask a bunch of smart questions about what are we doing and what are the different rules and regulations, et cetera. And then they asked the accountant, who's not trying to bury Trump. He's been the Trump family accountant for a long time, and he was his dad's accountant. They asked him, well, how was his dad? Was his dad more proactive during the taxes season and the filings, et cetera? And he's like, oh yeah, his dad was smart.
Well,
okay. So, and he's like, his dad was a real businessman.
To your point, Anna, what you were saying about asking the follow-up questions, and I love the fact that you guys are over 7 billion viewers and this and that. But Cenk, I don't know if you remember, we met at the alternative press conference, White House press conference dinner or whatever. The reason you guys aren't allowed in there is because you would ask that follow-up question, and they don't want that. You know, when he says he's the expert on taxes, my question would be like, okay, so how does no estate tax help middle America?
Yeah.
Do any of them have a $5.9 million farm or gas station? Like, it's an easy question, but nobody asks that. So yeah, when he says the big bills, you just pick one. Pick the tax bill or you know, anything that has happened, or healthcare, anything that's been on the table, and ask him, say, can you explain this point? You know, it would be like when they were questioning one of his judicial nominees who was sitting there like, courtroom? Well, no, I've never been in a courtroom.
So I thought of the same thing, healthcare. Look, it's a super easy follow-up question because it was actually in the news. The Republicans went and had a conference with him as they were trying to do that healthcare bill where they would get rid of Obamacare. And they said to him, well, look, we have this issue with the tax cut within the healthcare bill. He's like, no, we're doing tax cuts later. They're like, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's a different bill. But in this bill, there's also a tax cut.
No, you don't understand. He knows everything there is to know about the big bills.
So the Republicans walked out and talked to the press, and they're like, oh my God, of course, most of them anonymously, they're like, he doesn't know what's in the bill. He doesn't know what's in the bill. So a follow-up question, given that you know, if you're a New York Times reporter, that was a big story, you could say, oh, by the way, what was the size of the tax cut in your healthcare proposal? You think he would probably say there was no tax cut. We just did the tax cut, right? He doesn't know anything.
In this reporter's defense, you know he can't ask that question because it's the end of the interview.
That's right. That's a great point.
If there's a pool of reporters, somebody has to. That's when Sarah Huckabee comes out and does the real lying. But he would just be like, yeah, this is over.
It's over. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. And keep in mind that this reporter managed to interview him before. So, you know, it's that access, and that access, everyone's talking about this interview today. Everyone's talking about this reporter and how he managed to get this impromptu conversation with Trump. And so that's the bread and butter for, you know, establishment journalists. And I mean, I don't know, you gotta find a balance, I guess, but it's important to really show how incredibly incompetent this guy is. Otherwise, you're just giving him a platform to spew his nonsense. The
reporter's Michael Schmidt, and in his defense, he probably thought, nobody's stopping me. Let me just let this guy keep talking.
Right.
Because if he keeps talking, he's gonna say these amazing things. So, and he did, he got a lot of amazing quotes out of him.
Yes, so I wanna give you guys the final amazing quote that I caught my attention, and it was in regard to Jeff Sessions. Now, he doesn't mention Jeff Sessions by name in this comment, but it was a comment that he made in the context of Jeff Sessions recusing himself from the Russia investigation, which we all know Trump has not been happy about. Now, he says, I don't want to get into loyalty, but I will tell you that, I will say this, Holder, meaning Eric Holder under the Obama administration, protected President Obama, totally protected him. When you look at the things that they did, and Holder protected the president, and I have great respect for that, I'll be honest. So I don't know what he's referring to. He wasn't ever specific about how Holder protected Obama, but you can see there that it's a little bit of a jab at Jeff Sessions for not being loyal to Trump, for not protecting Trump, and that's not what the Attorney General's role is supposed to be.
As Alonzo said in the beginning, he misunderstands how our system works. He thinks the Attorney General his job is to protect the president, even if he's broken the law. No, that's the opposite of his job, and he just doesn't get it. You just watched the video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join.